Happy day, everybody. Welcome, Rotarians. When I was asked to supply a thought for the day, I got to thinking about just what that meant. Rotarians don't really share a thought for the day. We share bits of wisdom to be saved, held close, and used whenever we need them. I am not a religious person, but the wisdom I want to share with you today is my inspiration, my touchstone, the thing I try to live by. I'm not perfect, few if any of us are, but we can always do better, be better, try harder. It's only 24 words, and it's right in front of us. Thank you. Thank you. Here this time. Oh, wine? Whoops. Okay. I'm really delighted to make this introduction today. I know I'm getting old and my memory isn't everything it should be, but I can remember meeting Monya on the tennis courts about 20 years ago. She's a heck of a tennis player, by the way. She gave me what she would like me to say. She is the chair of the Commission for the Arts for 3 years, and I was on there with her for 2 years, and she's a heck of a chair, too. She retired after a 35-year engineering career at LLNL, we all know what that is, trustee at UC Merced, and on the board of a new nonprofit, listen up, Livermore Science and Society Center, working with Alan Burnham and the city on planning for Downtown Science Center. So I don't think there's any grass growing under her at all. She's here to talk about the Arts Commission, and I give her a warm welcome. Monya Lane.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy, for inviting me today. Those of you who know Kathy know that one of her passions is the Commission for the Arts and Public Art in Livermore. So when she asked me to come and give a status update on the commission, I felt like that was the least I could do for her 8 years of service on the commission herself. There are a number of other people in this room who've been involved with the commission over a period of time. I know Jim Schmidt has been a former chair of the commission. Chuck Hartwig, who is not here today, I learned from, and he turned over the ropes to me. So on behalf of everyone who has participated, I know enough people here today to know that there are a lot of opinions in this room. Art is in the eye of the beholder, and we're going to be talking about public art. I also know that a lot of people here know more about this topic and have more history than I have with art in Livermore. So feel free to chime in. It'll make it more interesting for everyone. You probably know that the Commission for the Arts is one of the City Council's advisory bodies. There are, on the website, all of the advisory bodies are listed in case you're interested. Let me get out my paper copy here so I can follow along with you. You know, the Airport Commission, the Beautification Committee, the Historic Preservation Commission, Housing Authority, Human Services, Library Board of Trustees, Planning Commission, Youth Advisory Commission, and others. The city depends on people like you all to volunteer and be part of these commissions. If the process is an application process and an interview with a couple of the city council members, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate. The Commission for the Arts was established by the City Council in 2004 in recognition for the great number, the unusually large number of cultural arts organizations and events that we already had in Livermore, in which a lot of you were responsible for forming, growing, and participating in currently. The original charter of the commission was to develop the Arts Alive Cultural Arts Plan, and at that time the City Council created the Cultural Arts District. You may know, in case you don't know, the Cultural Arts District in Livermore extends from where the Livermore Cinemas is located and then encompasses Railroad Avenue to 2nd Street all the way out to P Street. So that was formed by the City Council for the purposes of making the identity of cultural arts in Livermore more evident and make that as a way to attract people to Livermore as a destination for cultural arts. At the time, the city also established the Public Art Grants Program, encouraged wide public access to the arts through all of the arts festivals and activities that we have, and created, importantly, a 1/3% public art requirement for developers in Livermore. So people sometimes will say, why are you spending that money on public art? Fix the potholes in the roads instead. So if someone says that to you, please let them know that public art in Livermore is funded by this contribution from developers in Livermore alone. That is the source of the funding for the Commission for the Arts. And the city already had a 1% requirement for the city public works projects. And I believe, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the Wine Country mural next to Strizzi's was the first publicly funded public art project in Livermore. And I think that I read that it was from the garage construction project. So if somebody knows differently, but this is an example of how, does that sound right, Mark?
It sounds right.
Sounds right, okay. He doesn't have an alternative story, so. Okay. What's that?
Sounding right is different than actually being right.
I haven't been contradicted yet. I'll stand on that. Okay, let's see, next slide. Why public art? You may notice that the Commission for the Arts Charter is more narrowly focused perhaps than other Commission for the Arts in other cities. What I found out is every city does cultural arts completely differently. It's very difficult to compare apples to apples in Livermore because the funding is from development and the purpose is to encourage public art. That is basically our charter today. Why public art? Public art is a symbol of a vibrant community. I've heard this, I've read this many places in descriptions of other cities. It adds interest and appeal to people coming in and visiting Livermore. For me personally, I'm a downtown walker. I love walking downtown. And those murals and artworks downtown are part of what I have enjoyed about walking downtown for many years. Public art is not just the visual arts, though. It also includes performances, temporary performances, one-time performances. It includes the literary arts. And it does really create an incredibly rich and unique identity in Livermore. When you combine it with our Western heritage, our agriculture and viticulture, our national labs, you know, this really is a very unique and attractive community. An important part of public art is that it can be enjoyed by everybody in the community free of charge as they go about their everyday business. And the commercial developments are finding public art to be particularly of benefit to them at a bottom line. If you go out to the outlet malls, they've got public art in a couple of different places. If you look at the new Shea Homes Sage development, it turns out instead of giving that 30% fee to the commission for distributing for public art projects, they decided to incorporate public art into their development. I think they have something like, I can't remember the number, Kathy, maybe you can have like 10 or so sculptures that they've distributed around their development, and before they even started development, they were including those sculptures in their flyers and their posters and their billboard publicity for that development. The grants, which are an important part of what we do in the commission, one of the themes for the Commission for the Arts, like it is for so many people here and the projects that you all participate in and support, has a youth emphasis. And I'm pleased to see, as we look at what we funded this past year, that that thread goes all through the grants that we have funded this year. The Livermore Valley Opera Student Outreach Program, Bothwell Arts Center's Art Walk, Livermore Shakespeare Festival, the Livermore Symphony's Grade School Fiddle Club, the Pacific Chamber Orchestra Elementary School Assemblies, the Poet Laureate Science Poetry Contest, which also had youth participants in that science poetry contest, which was wonderful, and the LV PAC's Deluxe Puppets program for schools and the public. Some other recent commission projects are projects that we do annually. We fund elementary stage performances in the elementary schools every year. We give 8 to 10 high school senior art awards, $600 each, every spring to graduating seniors. And in addition to the Livermore Art Association's awards that they give for their spring art show, we also evaluate artworks and have city awards in each of the 7 categories at the spring art show. Last but not least, Kathy Streeter was the chair of the commission committee, which spent over 2 years putting together an RFP, evaluating how many responses were there to the downtown sculpture RFP?
Well over 100.
Yeah, I think it was, I can't remember exactly, but it was something, I think even close to 150 responses that we got to the RFP for downtown sculptures. There was not just a commission committee, but there was a citizens advisory committee which helped decide which sculptures were selected. I'll ask Kathy to say a couple words about this from her perspective. The idea was, because these were all going to go along First Street in our Art in Public Places procedure manual, we have a number of different possible locations for sculptures, a number of different locations for murals. Because these were going to go down First Street, we thought kinetic sculptures would be particularly attractive and appropriate in Livermore, where the breeze goes from west to east nicely down that direction. So 3 of the 4 sculptures ended up being kinetic. It's the 3, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th that you see here. The first one is in front of the Livermore Cinemas, and when we talked to the business owners beforehand, the Livermore Cinemas felt very strongly that they had already had an agreement with the city that the Livermore Cinemas marquee would be the noteworthy, visible piece coming from that direction into Livermore, and they did not want a sculpture there that would be distracting or compete with that marquee. So the first one, which is also a very beautiful sculpture, is a static sculpture and not kinetic. Does that sound right, Kathy? What else would you want to add as far as how these sculptures were?
We wanted to be sure that everybody downtown was happy with the sculptures, and you have no idea what kind of a job that is. Yes, you do. I take it back, you do. So we went through and sifted through all of I think it was 161 actually.
That sounds right.
All of those, they came from all over, not just local, but all over. So we sifted through those, we looked and looked and looked and looked, and we got it down a little bit and down a little bit. Then we had an advisory committee, then we went to the Downtown Association, then we went to all the businesses. This was a long process, but we wanted to make sure that everybody was happy with the sculptures. And I think I have not had a happier day since the day they were all, they were in, and we made a trek with, let me see, the mayor was there and made a little speech at each one. My favorite one is called Ta-Da, and that's the one that looks like 2 kids standing on each other's hands. That actually, the top one rotates, and it's right by where the fountain is. And it's very satisfying to see these and to hear people comment on how much they like them. And it was worth the effort. The commission worked very, very hard, and we're very happy it turned out the way it did.
Thank you, Kathy. The first one is called Peace, and one of the pleasures also was meeting the sculpture artists, the sculptors themselves. They came from different places. Lori Alcott is from Colorado. She and her husband actually run sculpture workshops around the world. After this was installed, they were going to Tuscany to give a sculpture workshop and have a documentary made as an example. And what's that?
Made a lot of money off that so that you can afford to go to Tuscany.
Well, I'm not sure about that part. And the second one, Steve Reisman, he is from Joshua Trees, and they run he and his wife run an artist in residence program there. That is called Tropic Birds and was inspired by the movement of birds in tropical areas, obviously. The C.J. Wrench is the sculptor for Tada, which is in front of next to Lizzie Fountain, as Kathy mentioned, and that was inspired by his then five-year-old daughter. So you can sort of see the idea of two kids, sort of holding hands, playing there. I think that's a really appropriate spot for that one. And then Patricia Vader lives in Martinez, high up on a windy hill. She spent a dozen or so years as an astronomer by training, and then it became too computerized for her. She felt too stuck to her desk, and she decided to go back and get an art degree. She went back to school in art. She has always liked bicycle wheels, she said, probably because she's Dutch. And so this is a small sculpture compared to many of the sculptures if you look on her webpage. But she has been very interesting to work with. She actually personally reverses the spokes of some of the wheels so that they turn in different directions as the breeze comes along. That one is right in front of the ale house. Yep, that's a very prominent location. Okay, one of our other pleasures this year, more than a year ago now, during this last fiscal year, was recommending the city's newest poet laureate, Cynthia Patton, who is a very accomplished, published author and poet. And she has an unbelievable amount of energy and enthusiasm for poetry. This is just one example of a flyer I had showing what she was doing recently this summer. She's got open mic at the Swirl regularly. Some of you know about that and participate in it. Resurrected Teen Poet of the Month, again, youth-oriented, which is great. Poetry workshop at the Alameda County Fair, cowboy poetry at Hageman Ranch, another open mic at the Carnegie Park Bandstand, and poetry at Ravenswood is an ongoing series of poetry events that attract people from outside of Livermore and bring in some noteworthy poets there. We also are in the role of approving public art that's funded by others. One of the more fun things we get to do every year is Laura Thornier, art teacher at Granada, who I believe was on the original Commission for the Arts and put together the original, participated in the original Cultural Arts Plan. She has students that she will bring their idea for this year's bus shelter mural. She'll bring that to the commission in advance and get our approval, and then she has a group of students that spend lunch times during the spring months creating this wonderful public art. This is this year's example that we all enjoy around the city. Another one, great example, is the beautification along the Arroyo Bike Trail. The beautification committee noticed that there was some tagging going on one of those underpasses, and got together. The Public Works was willing to fund a citizen group to go out and create this nice California wildflower mural along that bike trail, and they did a first phase, and now they're continuing to do that painting in that area. And it turns out the Public Works folks will tell you that graffiti artists aren't interested in already painted surfaces, so I think this is pretty effective. Last but not least, these last couple are just a couple examples from the SAGE development of the sculptures that they had there, and they again came to us in the very early stages and presented their concept to us. Most, if not all, of what I've described here and all of the existing artworks and murals and things that you've enjoyed over the years, everything from artworks that are out at the airport, the airport has outdoor and indoor public art, to the Civic Center library, everything in between. They can be found in a really nice public art guide on the city's website. If you look under things to do, fortunately art begins with an A. So it's the first thing on the pull-down menu. And there's both a Google map and a PDF version. They're both very easy to use. This is a snapshot from the Google map version, and you can see that some of the categories are showing on this page, and that continues. And then I just brought a copy so you can get the idea of the PDF version, and it also has nice maps and categories of artwork and a description of each piece, you know, when it was done, something about it, the artist. So please, if you know people that are interested in that, share that information with them. Current projects that we have. It has been our enormous pleasure to work with the Stockmen's Association recently in putting out the RFP and collecting the 32 responses for a sculpture in their honor that will be located in Stockman's Park. And you all are some of the very first to see. This is hot off the press. Apologies to the attending city council member who has not yet had an opportunity to approve this yet. We will be recommending to the city council. Thank you, Bob. We will be recommending. Literally, the Stockmen's Association met with the committee from the commission literally on Friday. The top 3 proposals were asked to submit a maquette. So yesterday at our monthly commission meeting, we literally had a 2-foot-high replica of the proposal. This will be heroic scale. I learned a new term for sculptures. Heroic scale is 8 feet tall. This will be an 8-foot tall sculpture. It is true to a 1918 cowboy going off to war with a authentic World War I military helmet. That was part of the criteria for selection. And there will be a plaque next to this sculpture explaining that the original rodeo was a fundraiser for the Red Cross assistance program at that time. So this will be a wonderful tribute. Bob?
I just wanted to say that.
Well, the other 2 are minor by comparison, but we are planning to add to the 2 sculptures that you may remember at the old library location. They're still there. So we plan to add at least 1 to begin with. And then we found out through this downtown sculpture process that rentals of sculptures are now a common business model. So we may try a sculpture garden where some of the sculptures are rotating, perhaps for a year or two. And that way, everyone might get their type of sculpture included along the way, because certainly had people come talk to us as we were installing downtown sculpture saying, couldn't you have chosen something a little more traditional? So all in the eye of the beholder and all good. And then the city's public art guide, we'd like to turn that into some sort of a driving and walking tour where you can go up to each artwork and have it linked to your personal electronic device and have the description of the artwork, interview with the artist. The poet laureate does a poem for each artwork, have all of those at your fingertips as you drive around or walk around. Okay, a few logistics to leave you with in case your interest is piqued. The monthly Commission for the Arts meetings are held in the library boardroom, and you are all always welcome to attend and bring your ideas. It's really important to get the input from everyone around the community in what we do. The grants range typically from $1,000 to $10,000. The $1,000 up to $1,000 grants are quarterly, and up to $10,000 grants are semi-annually. Please let people know, let me know if there are places where we admittedly do a little bit of ad hoc publicizing of these grants. We were just talking yesterday about how to do that for September 1st. So if there are places that you think that we should be advertising, please let me know, because we really would like a wide range of people and individuals. These are not just, they don't have to just be organizations. These can be individual grants. So please spread the word on that. And we do have 2 openings on the commission currently, talking about people moving to Nevada. One of our commissioners just did the, get more for your money, move to Nevada, and another one literally just moved to Pleasanton, but one of the requirements for the more commissions is to be a resident of Livermore. So we would especially like to get better representation from the distribution of the demographics in Livermore. I know that's always a challenge, but it's really important, especially in things like public art, where we want everyone to enjoy it. Ben?
Yes, my understanding is that how many people are supposed to be on the commission total?
9.
9. My understanding, and Kathy Streeter can possibly correct me, LARPD chooses, I believe, 2 of those. Kathy got on because that was where I met her many years ago. I interviewed Kathy as well as a couple of other people, and we chose her to be on the commission also. So you can either go through the city as the main entity that oversees this, but there also are a couple of positions open through LARPD.
Okay, yes, other feedback on, please.
Where do you get your funding for the grants?
So that funding does come from the 1/3% developers' public art fee. So those, and to, I think, maybe pull that thread, that amount varies every year. So, and Sage, as an example, they decided to do their own sculptures, which are fabulous. They're really compliments to them. But that's part of our challenge on the commission, is not knowing what our budget will really, it varies, by factors of, 2 or 3 from year to year. But that's all we have. I shouldn't say all, it's a great budget, but that is the sole source of income for us.
Yeah, I had a question. Thank you. Great job, great program, great results, I think. The question I had is, does the website, you might have already said this, does the website show examples of sort of the scope and scale of the prior successful application for mini grants and project program grants, so that applicants could have a better sense of what to aim for, what the scope and outcomes?
That is a great idea. We don't have example applications on there, but I have a commissioner who I think would take that idea and do something with it. So
I'm just
that's a
thinking,
great idea.
if you want to be more inclusive to the community, having it as clear
As
an
easy.
example would be facilitate that.
Guilty as charged. Applications processes are never the most user-friendly. So I think that's a great idea to have an example for people to make it user-friendly. Yeah, thank you. Other ideas?
Susan?
I'm curious about the 1/3 of 1%. Is that for the total developer project, or is
Yes.
it for a particular part of the project?
I believe it's, Mark can help me, but I believe it's the project. Total value. Yep.
Somebody done it out very much. Where is the seat?
Oh, excuse me, I did mean to say that. It's at Isabel Avenue, the freeway at Isabel Avenue. It's the new development that's visible from the freeway there. They're very nice, and yes.
One more.
What is the time of the day that the Commission for the Arts meets?
4:30. Thank you very much. It is on the webpage. The complete information is on the webpage. Thank you for that. I missed the obvious. I know it's at 4:30.
Well, thank you. Before you go, you have a choice of two artisanal items here. One is a bottle of wine or a bottle of olive oil, both from the Livermore Valley, so you can pick your...
I love them both, but is there really a choice? I think wine is the obvious.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then